Welcome to Birken Forest Monastery's Questions and Answers Live. I'm Ajahn Sona. Please feel free to ask a question in the chat bar. Let's try the first one.
Ajahn, our first question today from the live stream is from No One Everyone in Iran. Is each, quote, individual, unquote, mind with its specific characteristics and habits completely independent of the mind of another being? Or is it something more like a branch of a tree, a river, or lightning, a subsidiary formation of something that is deeply interconnected and intrinsic to the universe itself and is all-pervasive, similar to gravity, that is never actually born or ever really ceases to be? Even when matter such as stellar formations disperse, gravity continues to manifest elsewhere, along with energy, thus creating new formations, persistently creating new worlds.
Yeah, those are definitely the kind of questions that arise in meditation. Sit quietly in a room by yourself, especially if you have good education in physics. And then those kind of questions will pop up. But we need practical answers to it. We realize we need to get on with the process, which the process narrows down to suffering and the end of suffering. And we keep asking ourselves the question, am I in touch with the reality that everything that I experience, everything both within me and outside of me, is transient, passing away, and has no substantial essence? Now, am I in touch with that to the degree that I'm not disturbed, shocked, or dismayed at the events of this universe? So we always bring it back to that. And whether the mind has a universal nature, whether it's connected in some ways to others, can be set aside as we don't have to answer that question. What we have to find out is, do I have the capacity to change my mind about things, to reformat my emotional reactions to the events of reality? Can I achieve this unhindered ease and serenity in the midst of this reality of change? So there's all kinds of interesting questions we can speculate about. This is what, in Western types of psychology or philosophy, we would say Jungian psychology talks about the collective unconscious, where we're sort of accessing some sort of non-personal source of information. Of course, the Buddha is very much onto the non-personal part. The mind itself is not something that a self creates. You don't make your own mind. You don't own your own mind. There is mind. And it is, yes, it is a universal process. Is it connected to other streams of consciousness? It interacts, consciousness, perception, volitions, interact with other streams of consciousness, perception, and so forth, what we would call other beings. They interact, they're influenced by, but they do have an essential autonomy in the moral dimension, which is that you are responsible for the results of your intentional moral choices. So when you make moral choices, you will get the result. And it won't be somebody else that gets the results, and you won't get somebody else's results. You'll get the results that that your particular series of decisions produce. in the moral dimension. So there is autonomy, but there's obviously interaction as well. We can influence others, hopefully in a good way. At the same time, all of the processes of the universe, the physical, the mental, the emotional, they don't really have a specific owner. They're ownerless. They're simply laws of the universe. But they work in very specific ways. Right. Okay, let's try the next question.
Next question is from Upasaka Sumana in Whitecourt, Alberta, Canada. The popular online rendering of the Buddha's last words is, quote, "Be a light unto yourself," unquote. In discussion with a Dhamma friend on the meaning of this, we engaged in some searches and found many translations. Some suggest, "Be your own salvation." Some talk only of diligence on the path. I would very much like to hear Ajahn translation, understanding of the Buddha's last words and how they should guide practitioners.
Yeah, I wouldn't translate the last words as be a lamp unto yourself or a light unto yourself. That type of of advocation is found, but I certainly wouldn't translate the last words of the Buddha that way. The basic translation is everything is subject to decay, impermanence. That's the first sentence. And then the second one is this word apamadena. You need to apply yourself effectively it's up to you. In other words, it's your personal efforts are in the face of universal impermanence is the primary directive. As your primary directive is to work your understanding out with consistency and determination. This word apamadena is the word that is sometimes translated as diligence, energy sometimes. You see a version of it in the 5 precepts under intoxication, apamada, negligence. So it's the opposite of negligence. Whatever you think is the opposite, the antonym of negligence, that is what is meant there. Don't be negligent in your attempt to free yourself. It is the primary value of existence. Your own capacity to free yourself from suffering is the highest value of human existence. And so you should undertake it without negligence. Next question.
Next question from the live stream is from Jeff in Wisconsin, United States. What is the result of the 4th foundation, a mindfulness? Right effort? The other foundations seem to produce seeing the nature of reality of mind, feeling, and body, seeing that none of it relates to any self and leads to dispassion towards them and wisdom about them, freedom, equanimity from and about them.
Okay, so was it Jeff? Jeff. So, so for the audience, there are the 7th factor of the Eightfold Path. By the way, if you're not familiar with the Eightfold Path, that is the skeleton, the structure of Buddhism. The teachings of the Buddha basically pack into the Eightfold Path, and everything unpacks from the Eightfold Path. And the 7th factor is called right mindfulness. And under right mindfulness are 4 aspects, sometimes referred to as 4 foundations of mindfulness. And mindfulness is like attention directed to in a specific way. So mindfulness is often just bandied around as a term, meaning attention, but it's not just attention, it's right attention, attending in the right way, a productive way to the nature of the body, feelings like sensations of pain, pleasure and pain and neutral feelings and so forth. And then the mind itself, awareness and the ability to discern the condition of the mind. And this would be mostly the emotional condition of the mind, whether you're angry or not, desiring or not, confused or not, lucid or not. So this is getting to know yourself. So the Buddha just divides you up into 4 categories. Get to know your body and its real nature, so that you're not shocked or surprised or just ill-informed about it. Take it apart, put it back together, take it apart, put it back together, divide it up in certain ways, realize that it is subject to death and decay. So a realistic acquaintance with your body, and then look at what are called sensations or feelings, and get a realistic notion that there are pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither, that is neutral feelings. Get to know your mind. Lots of people don't know their mind. Like they don't know that they're angry. They don't know that they're craving or desiring. It may be so normal to them that they don't understand the condition of their mind. So this is getting to know yourself. And then the last category is a very different category. This is called Dhamma Nupassana, meaning seeing the truth structures which apply to this process, the Eightfold Path. And here you find 2 primary ones. The first one is the 5 psychic irritants, the 5 problems which we experience. And they're greed and anger, agitation, sloth, and doubt. And then we have already had instructions in the 6th factor of the Eightfold Path called right effort about what to do about these 5 hindrances, these 5 psychic irritants. And we are to apply those efforts to those. And then there's another category called the 7 factors of awakening or enlightenment. These are very beautiful qualities. Mindfulness is one of them. In other words, having developed the capacity to have sustained attention to the right topic in the right way, and then to use that capacity to investigate that. So you're investigating reality, not just randomly or like, in other words, a curious, intelligent person, like a child perhaps, gets a hold of an encyclopedia. And they will like to read it right through, probably just from beginning to end in alphabetical order. They don't know they're not prioritizing certain kinds of knowledge. They're just reading it in alphabetical order because they don't know what is important. This second factor of enlightenment is called Dhamma Vichaya, or investigation of Dhamma, but it means that you're not just investigating everything. More or less, science is the investigation of everything. This is the investigation of something very unique and important, and that is held above all other investigations. So this is this Dhamma, this truth of the nature of why does suffering arise and how you can free yourself from it. So energy and then the emotions of joy and serenity are created out of this. So there's a very beautiful emotional reward to this process of Dhamma. It's not merely abstract ideas and thinking. It's not another philosophical triumph to demonstrate your intelligence. It's an important emotional transformation. So these is what this fourth category of the four foundations of mindfulness are. The seventh factor of the path is right mindfulness. And as Jeff said, the first three are kind of getting to know the body, the feelings, and the mind. And then the fourth one is definitely what to do about this information you have gathered about the body, the feelings, and the mind. And this ties back into right effort, the right effort which should be made about the information you've gathered. So it's very sensible. It's type of thinking, lucid inquiry and thinking that we use the best minds of this present age in philosophy and science, in all kinds of areas, use this same type of process for towards different ends, but we're using it exclusively towards the end of unsatisfactory existences. Okay, so let's go to the next question.
Next question from the live stream is from Upasika Mustafa. In physics, it is understood that every action we have taken in the past, whether intentional or habitual, falls within our own past light cone and can be considered a cause for our present experiences. However, I am curious as to why the Buddha teaches us that only our intentional actions bear karmic fruit and not all of our actions.
Well, all of our actions do have resultants. According to the principles of physics, every minute particle of the universe is determined, and what happens to particles at this present moment is the result of the actions of particles in the past. Or if you don't like particles, then the quantum soup of the past is producing the quantum soup of the present. But what we're concerned with is what bears on the suffering nature, or the diminishment of suffering, and that is our moral choices. So yes, if we brush our teeth, it's a neutral experience. It may preserve the enamel on your teeth, etc. So it will have an effect. But if you bite another person maliciously with those teeth, then that will bear a resultant, a moral resultant, and it will have a negative result. And so that's what we're concerned with, is the actions in the moral dimension which will have negative or positive results. The neutral types of actions will have results as well, but they're not within the possibilities of total action towards results. There was a sect of practitioners called the Jains at the time of the Buddha, and they were more or less concerned with non-moral actions as well. They thought that even accidentally stepping on an insect or something like that, or inhaling an insect accidentally, had a resultant, a negative, a karmic resultant. And the Buddha said, if that was the case, there would be no exit from samsara. The primary concern is with intention in the action, not accidental or neutral. And that's why there is a hope for the diminishment of suffering and the exit from the round of birth and death. And that's why, he prioritizes that, gives the highest priority to your intentional thought, speech, and action. And that he doesn't deny that there is cause and effect from neutral actions. If you accidentally step on an insect, there's an effect. The insect dies. Or stings you or something like that. So that they have an effect, but you are to focus on the moral dimensions, because that's the way to reduce the optimal way to reduce the suffering consequences.
Next question from the live stream is from Hermit Mouse in Tucson, Arizona, United States. Ajahn, could you talk a bit about Vasa? I'm an old hermit, but a new lay hermit. How was your first Vasa? How should I proceed?
So Vasa is the Pali term for the rainy season. And this is, of course, in certain areas of Southeast Asia, India, there is something called the monsoon season. And Buddhism is, it develops in northeast India, and there is a monsoon season. And there's a whole culture that has to deal with this rainy season. And so the Sangha, the group of monks and nuns that were followers of the Buddha, had to decide how to live and during this 3 months rainy season. There's a lot of implications to this. And this is a time when traveling is reduced because there's a lot of the ground and everything is soaked with water, and there's a lot of damage that can be done by just walking around even. So the Buddha suggests that they remain within a specific monastery during the entire rain season. So that means that you're usually in a community type situation. It's possible, by the way, to spend the Vasa or the rains in solitude as well, if you're a developed meditator. Lay people, by the way, aren't under the obligations of these rules. Lay people can spend the rains as they wish, and they have all kinds of duties and obligations, so they can't just follow monastic ideas. But how it works, at least in modern times, specifically in Thailand, which is probably the largest population of Theravada Buddhist monks in the world. Generally, the rains are a time of community and study and practice. But since your travel capacity is restricted, you shouldn't go out of the monastery except for significant purposes, and then not for more than about 6 days at a time. So this is used for community practice, and especially in the forest monasteries, they'll set up a particular meditation schedule, and that no other distracting types of activities will be undertaken. This is not totally mandatory. The other monasteries have a more casual view of this. Not all monks even meditate, and in modern times there's a lot of fragmentation of the very core purpose of being a monk. In certain of these traditional societies, as found in, say, Myanmar, Thailand, and Sri Lanka, there's substantial numbers of monks that are in the robes without the slightest expectation of attaining nirvana or even meditating to a significant significant degree. They're in there for other reasons, and they would perhaps conform to these rainy season ideas, but at least restraint of movement, but may not be aspiring to much more than that. So the rains, though, are properly set up so that monastics can practice in an optimal way, and also lay people can come to visit the monasteries during that time for inspiration and perhaps some meditation as well. Certainly our monastery is set up so that visitors can come and stay with us and meditate in optimal conditions. Of course, for us, it's the summer. It's the opposite of the rains. It's the dries. So the dry season is now equivalent to the Indian rain season, and we optimize that. We are connected to all kinds of other monasteries around the world in different countries. We have a very harmonious, well-disciplined Sangha, all stemming from our training in the Thai forest monasteries, with the original sort of teacher being Ajahn Chah. These monasteries are scattered throughout the world in different climates and zones, but we all kind of abide by this, affiliating this idea with the Indian rainy season, even though, as I say, some places it's a desert, some places it's winter. In the southern hemisphere, it will be the opposite. Of the summer, it'll be the winter. So we keep the traditional theme of this, even though the climatic elements don't apply to us in most areas of the world outside of India and Thailand. Thailand does have a monsoon season, yeah.
Next question is from Matt in San Francisco, California, United States. Greetings, Ajahn. I am constantly listening to Dhamma talks, both by you and other venerables, while I am home doing chores on my AirPods. I wanted to know the proper etiquette on if I should pause the Dhamma talks when I am using the bathroom. Or am I overthinking things? This is a sincere question, and I'm asking because I've struggled with religious OCD, quote, scrupulosity, unquote, in the past, and could use your guidance here.
No, I think it's a good place to listen to Dhamma. Quite often the best ideas come when you're sitting on the toilet, or having a bath or whatever. Just don't drop your AirPods into the toilet. That can happen, you know. Watch how you tilt your head. You know, so the Buddha is a very earthy personality, and he's explicitly talks about practicing while this is not polite society. This is a reality. The body is in its functions. We need to look at it. And it is part of the Dhamma to just be realistic about the body and its functions. And so it's perfectly well to maintain the function, focusing on Dhamma while using the toilet. Yeah. Don't be too delicate about the matter. Yeah.
Next question from the live stream is from Alec. Hello, Bhante. I hope you're all well. Both avijja and moha can be translated as ignorance. Could you please clarify the difference between these two terms?
Well, I'm sure that there's lots been written about this, but avijja literally means not knowing. So the perfect word is ignorance, ignosis. Gnosis is to know in the Greek, and ig is to not, and avijja is identical. You know, these, by the way, this Pali language, Sanskrit, Pali, are deeply intertwined with the Latin languages, the Greek and Latin languages, Greek and all of the Indo-European languages. So this language family is often referred to as Indo-European or Indo-Aryan. It is overlapping in many ways, has similar roots. It's the general consensus is that Sanskrit and its variants, which would include Pali, seem to have arisen in Eastern Europe, and various migration patterns brought it to northern India. And this is this Aryan migration, not the Aryan invasion, but the Aryan migration. It seemed to be a climatic situation where agriculture and hunting and so forth was not sufficient in an area, and they moved, and they brought these language structures. So the Vedas, early Indian types of thinking and religious ideas were brought in that language. This is very interesting. It connects Europe and Southeast Asia in many ways, at least India. So when we look at these types of words like moha, it would be what we would call dull, dark, ignorance in the pejorative sense. Sometimes we say, ignorance is rather a neutral term. So one lacks knowledge, and it's not a terrible thing to lack knowledge. I mean, it's not a terrible personality defect to lack knowledge. But then there's people who are really thick, dull, and darkened, but so it's a kind of pejorative term. So these are just ways of talking about absence of knowledge and ignorance and so forth. So moha is more or less the folk term for a bit stupid kind of thing, dull, and avijja is a more polite and balanced term to say lacking in knowledge. Yeah.
Next question from the live stream is from Upasika Chris in North Carolina, United States. Dear Ajahn, what are the requirements or prerequisites to becoming an anagarika? Are people with tattoos allowed in? Do all debts need to be paid off beforehand?
Yeah, so this word anagarika means without a house or a homeless. So giving up the home life for the more or less monastic type of life, but it's short of being ordained as either as a novice monk or as a full monk or bhikkhu. So anagarika is usually the first stage of training in some of the monasteries. There's a different type of structure for various monasteries. In the early days, the Buddha is giving more or less instant full ordination to people who want it. Somebody walks up to the Buddha and says, I'd like to be a bhikkhu. This is the original word, which we translate as monk. And he says, Ehi bhikkhu, which means, come, you are a monk. Para, now go get some robes and stuff. Shave your head and get some robes. And then it becomes more elaborate as time goes by. The first seekers are very earnest, and they have the right intention, and the Buddha recognizes this. And then as things get more popular, the quality of the candidates tend to go downhill. So then the responsibility for their ordination is given over to the monks, and there's some training involved in preliminaries. At this time, in our particular tradition, we don't do instant ordinations for anybody who shows up. There's a period of time, usually about a year or so, that one is called an anagarika, and you wear white and shave your head. And it's not ordination. It's not, you're neither a novice nor a bhikkhu, but you can live in the monastery on 8 precepts. And usually your head is shaved and you wear white clothes. And this is a kind of a learning experience, so you get to know whether you're cut out for this kind of your life. And also the monks who have long experience also get to observe you and see if you are of the right temperament for this lifestyle at present. Tattoos, it seems that we're a whole tribal tattoo tribe, aren't we now? Everybody's got tattoos. Tattoos are very deep in human history. It's explicit at the time of the Buddha. They do mention that monks are not allowed to get tattoos. But if they have been tattooed before as lay people, it's not a disqualifying thing. So I've seen lots of monks who are just covered with tattoos, but the tattoos were applied before they were monastics, so that's fine. The tattoo is very deep in human history. You will see tribal structures thousands of years old where there's tattoos applied to the human body. Thailand is a tattoo country. Long before any tattoos had any resonance with Western cultural ideas. Quite often the tattoos are religious in nature. They're scriptures, more or less. Scriptures and religious symbols tattooed on the body. And you'll see Thai men that are just covered with tattoos, and sometimes they're protective spells or something like that. And then they decide to become a monk, so they're covered with tattoos, and it's okay. But yeah, it's not a disqualifying feature. Yeah.
Next question from the live stream is from Terry. Ajahn Sona, I cook weekly for my local temple and often make charitable donations of food and other sustenances. I feel so much joy and happiness and peace when I do this. My family will often ask me for money, thousands of dollars. When I give it to them, they always ask for more. I feel angry that they ask all the time, but guilty if I do not give them what they want. Why is it that I do not feel the same joy and happiness when I send money to my family?
Well, I mean, first of all, in monastic terms, nobody is asking anybody for money. People who join into the sasana, there's two kinds of, this word sangha is explicitly meaning the ordained monks and nuns. In the West, the word has been broadened to include the lay community. That's not the real meaning of the word. In a way, we have 4 aspects of the sangha, which is the monastics, both monks and nuns, and then lay women and lay men. And as you become interested in Dhamma or supporting it, you either become a monk or a nun, or you stay as a lay person in the household life. And then the lay people may wish to contribute to the support of the monks. The reason why the monks don't have a livelihood other than all they do is receive food to get themselves through the day. So they have to put themselves in a position. By the way, monks are not helpless in any ways. They're quite often from good families with good educations and they can have very high worldly accomplishments, but they renounce that, and they're not unable to do these things. They're bound by monastic rules not to do these things. They're not to make an independent livelihood. They're not to do these things. So they put themselves in the position of being dependent on the lay community for their food, their clothes, shelter, and medicine. So once the lay community knows this, that these people have voluntarily renounced those things that most of the rest of the world are clamoring after, and for a good reason, in order to live the contemplative life, and then also to share their experience with the lay people, then they're happy to support that. The lay people are happy to support that, but they're not required to. In some of the Christian churches, they have this thing called tithing, where you have to give a certain portion of your income to the church and so forth. This is not done in the Buddhist structures. It's voluntary, and it's not. It's just if you want to, please do. But it's always a spontaneous offering. So your family is in a different situation. They're demanding, they're asking, and maybe they're putting it to use in ways which you don't find very valuable. They're buying a new video game with it, or a sports car, or some sort of luxury item that is just frivolous. So this is why you may have certain resentments. They're not putting it to any high moral use, whereas the Sangha is very ancient, and the monks are bound by certain ethics and rules, and the donations are being put to good use. So that's the difference.
Next question is from Lucia in Slovenia. Since she learned to speak, my 7-year-old daughter has been talking about reincarnating from what seems like the Deva realm, a place of light that smelled nice and where she could fly around freely. Could you give some advice on how to raise a former Deva? She is very empathic, strong-minded, and repulsed by strong tastes and sounds and people's, quote, dirty hearts, as she calls them.
Yeah, this is so. In the West, we have this idea that heaven follows this life, but in Buddhism, it can precede this life. So, as I sometimes point out, this life is the afterlife. This is the one after the one that you had before, and beings can descend from heaven. They take rebirth as a human after a long period in heaven, or they might take rebirth from a previous human existence, or even from lower realms, ghost realms, hellish realms. They might appear having arisen from those realms, and they will have leftover personality tendencies from those experiences. And so you do get these deva, these angelic beings being born from the human womb, and they're usually have the marks of, what you would expect. There's a lot of commentary material about, the type of how to discern whether the child has been arrived from heaven or not, and it's usually they are before they're even exposed to anything in the early, as a very young baby, they have these smiles on their face as if they're still in heaven, and they have very beautiful emotional states. They're usually chuckling, smiling, radiant with ease. And those who are coming up from the lower realms are usually wailing and in great disappointment and grief. So, there's a kind of a leftover experience, the after effects of a long period of heavenly existence. As she gets older, she will experience this earthly life, this human life, as quite disappointing and dark and crude. She'll have highly refined sense of life, and this planet, even the most beautiful parts of the planet, are very disappointing compared to these sort of heavenly dwellings. So this is a kind of an after effect on the mind. So this is, when you see this, and they in fact many children may have memories of their previous existences, but in societies where the concept of a previous life isn't around, usually the child's stories about their previous lives are usually written off as babbling or just storytelling or invention, but they may be actually describing their previous lives. The possibility of remembering a previous life is highest in childhood, and then it diminishes as this life, the concerns of this life take over, the memories of previous lives fade, and that's probably a very good thing. In fact, it's not all that great, and it's kind of a problem if a person does remember their past life because it interferes with the present life. It is something like an immigrant that has been involuntarily kicked out of their country and arrives in a new country, not because they wanted to go there, but because they had to. And if they keep dwelling and talking about the old country and it's not healthy. They can't adjust. They live in a ghostly remembrance. It's better if you just forget the past and get on with the present and adapt to it.
Next question from the live stream is from Theodore in Fargo, North Dakota, United States. Dear Longpor, if a person found themselves in a fascist dictatorship, would they be required to disclose their Buddhist faith when asked if it meant incarceration or death?
No, but you're not to lie explicitly, but you can be rather evasive and or find some way to, you're not putting yourself in harm's way deliberately any more than you'd put anybody else in harm's way, but you draw the line at full-blown intentional lying about it. So, you're concerned for your well-being. You're not putting yourself in the way of harm and so forth, if possible. But sometimes it comes down to it where you can't deny it, and in that case, well, the truth wins out. You'll see this does happen and has happened. In the West, we're preoccupied with the terrible things that have happened to religious people because of their religious affiliations. Of course, the Second World War, there were the Jews in the Second World War. Well, of course, Christians indeed in Russia during the Marxist regime. Terrible things happened in the East as well. China, particularly, the Communist Party did tremendous destruction of Buddhist temples and monasteries. They forced monks and nuns to disrobe. Some of them were killed. Most of them fled, or many of them fled, and not most of them. Some thousands of them got out. But remember that in China, before the revolution, there were about 2.5 million monastics and maybe 500,000 monasteries. So obviously, millions of monastics didn't get away. Something happened to them. Bad things happened. A few thousand managed to get out. You'll see some still in areas like Taiwan, Hong Kong. Some went to Europe and North America. Then again, in the invasion of Tibet in the 1960s, the monastics suffered greatly. There was no concealing what you were. I mean, you were a monk with robes on, and so it was pretty easy to spot you. So they ended up often in prisons for a decade or 2 decades, accompanied by torture and things like that. So yeah, there's various ways. I don't advocate everybody become a martyr, but at some point you sometimes have to just say, well, I'm not in agreement with your religious or political ideas. I am a Buddhist, and I don't intend to change. Sometimes it's necessary to say that, but but it's not necessary to martyr yourself if there are other alternatives. In Christianity, the martyr has become glorified, where you kind of offer yourself for destruction, as kind of a glorious end. But it's not really a big thing in Buddhism. It's like, wouldn't it be better if we all just got along? So, yeah, let's go on to the next topic.
The next question is from the live stream from John in Sweden. Dear Ajahn, I remember you said arahants only experience an array of positive emotions. It seems they have a lot of control over their thoughts and emotions. Could this suggest that they, for example, cannot be shocked or surprised by anything, given this degree of control?
Yeah. Basically, yeah, they don't have emotional shock. They've gone through it. You see this. Some people may doubt the possibility, but you'll see this in different people. A whole range of capacity within humans. A doctor or a surgeon and so forth is not shocked in any way by seeing the internal organs of a person or terrible wounds or diseases, because they've been trained and they train themselves. And so, but a person without that training may be incredibly shocked, maybe even pass out from the sight of these things. Again, people learn, police and so forth deal with a lot of violence and may not be shocked. Some of them may, in fact. Of course, we have this, what's called PTSD, where a person is in a profession where normal people would be shocked, and they also are shocked, and it mounts up on them. But some of them are able to manage the situation, violence and suffering and so forth, without being traumatized by it. So this is the goal of the meditator, is to rehearse the true spectrum of reality and what things can happen and may indeed happen, and certainly death is one of them. So monastics were suggested to go to exposed graveyards where corpses were left to rot, and to spend days or weeks or a significant amount of time amongst bodies decomposing, just to get real about this. But you're not going there to just be shocked or traumatized by it. You're there to see the reality with equanimity. So you're training your mind. I had an opportunity to do this in Thailand in some of the forest monasteries. Ordinary lay people would go to the monastery and tell the monks that when they die, they might have an illness coming on or something like this, but when they die, that they like to donate their body to the monks for meditation. So they would, the family would bring that body to the monastery, and we would have it in a kind of an exposed grave kind of thing, and just spend time sitting, observing this decaying corpse. And in order to just get real about things, So this is the training, and it can result in a high degree of equanimity and without shock. Basically not being shocked by anything anymore. Yeah. Okay, one last question.
Ajahn, our final question today is from the live stream from 1102 EFC. If Lord Buddha on the middle path dwells forever in Nibbana, isn't Nibbana a condition of existence? Did Lord Buddha want to continue an experience of existence?
Yeah, that's, of course, one of the $64,000 question. I guess we'll have to do it for inflation now. It's $640,000 question. What happens to the enlightened person after death? And this is famously, it was asked, well, do they exist? Not exist? Both? Neither? And the Buddha replied, what happens to a flame when it goes out? Does it go north, south, east, or west? And of course, when we talk about a flame going out, we don't ask where it went. So the Buddha is saying that the cessation, extinction of a fully enlightened person is kind of like that flame. The fuel has been exhausted that drives one through samsara. So asking about where it went is sort of like that. But to this day, there's arguments on both sides. Does that mean, are you talking annihilation? Are you talking absolute extinction? Or are you talking about a condition of existence which is inconceivable and inexpressible? Certainly, what is said is that there is no continuation of the body, or feelings, or many of the mental processes. Is there some form of consciousness that persists in an unimaginable condition, which has no sights, sounds, smells, taste, touches, or ideation? So there's a couple of schools of Buddhism on this, and one of them says, well, there's some sort of unimaginable, inexpressible something or other. And the other one says, nah, it's just complete extinction. So I leave that for your reflection. And we will wrap up for today.